Alright. Let's get one thing straight before we even start. If you came here expecting another dusty, monotone history lesson about Roman gladiators, you know, the kind where some guy in a tweed jacket reads from a textbook while showing black and white photos of broken pottery, then I'm sorry, but you've clicked on the wrong video. Because today, we are going to tear apart every single Hollywood glitch, every stupid myth, and every boring factoid that your high school teacher fed you. And we're going to do it with the kind of sarcasm that would make a Roman senator blush. I saw the competition's little video about gladiator diets. Cute. They mentioned barley. They mentioned beans. They even threw in the word stamina a couple of times. Wow. Groundbreaking. It's like they read the first paragraph of a Wikipedia article and called it a day. But me. I've dug deeper. I've read the actual archaeological reports. I've looked at the bone scans. I've even tried to recreate that disgusting ash drink they used to chug, and let me tell you, I nearly threw up. But that's a story for later. So, sit back, grab a snack, preferably a steak, because that's what gladiators didn't eat, and get ready to have your mind blown. We're about to discover that the most brutal warriors of antiquity were basically carb-loaded, slightly chubby, ash-swilling vegans. And I am not exaggerating. Not even a little bit. Let's start with the obvious. When you picture a gladiator, what do you see? Go on, close your eyes. I'll wait. You're seeing Russell Crowe in Gladiator, right? Chiseled jaw, bulging biceps, chest like a slab of marble, and probably a half-eaten leg of lamb in one hand. He's a killing machine fueled by protein and rage. That's the image that's been burned into our brains by decades of movies, TV shows, and cheesy video games. Now, I hate to burst your bubble, but that image is about as accurate as saying that ancient Romans had smartphones. The real gladiators. They looked more like your uncle who loves craft beer and claims he's just big-boned. Seriously. When archaeologists exhumed a gladiator cemetery in Ephesus, that's in modern-day Turkey, by the way, they didn't find the remains of muscle-bound Adonises. They found skeletons that screamed carb addict. The evidence is written in their bones. Literally. Stable isotope analysis, and I promise I'll keep the science jargon to a minimum, showed that these guys ate a diet that was about 70 to 80% plant-based. Legumes. Grains. Vegetables. And the star of the show. Barley. So much barley that the Romans actually had a nickname for them. Hordearii. That means barley men. Not meat men. Not protein warriors. Barley men. Imagine being a feared fighter, and your official title is essentially Mr. Oatmeal. You'd never get a date, let alone intimidate a barbarian. But why barley? Why not give them the good stuff, you know, roasted boar, imported fish, fine wine? Well, for one, gladiators weren't exactly high-class citizens. Most of them were slaves, prisoners of war, or criminals. They weren't dining at the emperor's table. But more importantly, the Romans were surprisingly smart about sports nutrition. They didn't have Gatorade or protein powder, but they understood that endurance matters more than raw power in a fight that can last for hours under the scorching sun. Barley is a complex carbohydrate. It releases energy slowly. It keeps your blood sugar steady. It doesn't sit in your stomach like a brick of meat. So, while you're dodging a trident and swinging a sword, you don't get cramps, you don't crash, and you don't need to take a nap halfway through. It was the ancient equivalent of pasta loading before a marathon. Except the marathon involved sharp objects and a crowd that would give you a thumbs down if you messed up. Now, here's where it gets truly bizarre. You've got your barley, your beans, your lentils. That's your fuel. But what about recovery? After a brutal training session or a fight, you're sweating, you're losing minerals, your bones are aching from all the clubbing and stabbing. What do you reach for? A nice, cold sports drink. A protein shake. Maybe a fruit smoothie. Nope. You reach for a cup of ash. I swear, I am not making this up. The same archaeological study I mentioned earlier found that the gladiators had abnormally high levels of strontium in their bones. Strontium is a trace element that comes from plants, and specifically, from plant ash. The researchers concluded that these guys were regularly drinking a concoction made from wood or plant ash mixed with vinegar. It was their post-workout recovery potion. Their ancient Gatorade. Their magical elixir. Now, let's think about this for a second. You're a gladiator. You've just survived a fight. You're covered in blood, hopefully not your own. You're exhausted. And your trainer comes over with a clay cup and says, "Here, drink this." You take a sip. It tastes like a campfire that died in a vat of cheap wine. It's gritty, it's sour, and it leaves a weird chalky residue on your teeth. But you drink it because it's packed with calcium, magnesium, potassium, and iron, all the stuff your battered body craves. One of the lead researchers, a guy named Fabian Cans, actually compared it to modern-day effervescent tablets. You know, those fizzy things you drop in water for extra vitamins. Except this one is fizzy from vinegar and tastes like burnt toast. Cans even speculated that with good vinegar, it might have tasted like refreshing lemonade. I'm sorry, but I've tried vinegar and ash, and refreshing lemonade it is not. It's more like drinking a liquid ashtray. But hey, it worked. The gladiators' bones were denser and more mineral-rich than those of ordinary Romans. They healed faster, broke less often, and could get back in the arena quicker. So, the next time you complain about the taste of your protein shake, just remember. Somewhere in ancient Rome, a sweaty, half-naked guy is chugging fireplace leftovers and loving it. Alright, let's address the elephant in the arena. If they were eating all these carbs and drinking ash, what did they actually look like? Because I'll tell you what they didn't look like. They didn't look like a fitness model. No six-packs. No shredded abs. No visible veins popping out of their necks. The truth is, gladiators were, by modern standards, overweight. Some researchers even used the word flabby. They had a thick layer of subcutaneous fat that acted like natural armor. Think about it. You're in a fight with swords, spears, and nets. You're going to get cut. If you're lean and muscular, a deep slash can hit an organ, a major blood vessel, or a nerve. But if you've got a nice, cushy layer of blubber, that sword is going to slice through fat, bleed a lot for the crowd's enjoyment, but cause very little real damage. It's a survival tactic. It's like wearing a built-in Kevlar vest made of lard. And the Romans, being the practical bastards they were, knew this. They didn't want their expensive gladiators dying too quickly. They wanted shows, drama, entertainment. A thin gladiator bleeds out in 5 minutes. A fat gladiator bleeds spectacularly for 20 minutes, gives the crowd a thrill, and lives to fight another day. So they fed them accordingly, loads of carbs to pile on the pounds, and just enough protein to keep their muscles working. So, forget the Hollywood abs. The real gladiator was a barrel-chested, pot-bellied man who could take a hit, shrug it off, and keep swinging. And you know what? That's way more impressive. Any gym bro can get shredded with enough chicken breast and steroids. But it takes a special kind of badass to fight with a beer gut and still win. Now, don't think for a second that these guys were just lazy gluttons. They trained like demons. They lived in special schools called Ludi, and no, that's not a joke about ludicrous. These were military-style barracks with strict routines, coaches, doctors, and even masseurs. They woke up at dawn, did strength drills, practiced with wooden swords, and sparred relentlessly. And every single meal was calculated to optimize their performance, not for aesthetics, but for endurance and resilience. Their diet wasn't just about carbs and ash. They also ate a fair amount of fruit, dried figs, and cheese when available. But meat was rare, not because they were ethical vegetarians, but because meat was expensive and, frankly, unnecessary for their style of combat. They didn't need explosive power like a weightlifter, they needed stamina like a cross-country runner. So, they ate like runners. Pasta, beans, and more pasta. And here's a twist that'll blow your mind, some gladiators were actually free men who volunteered for the arena. They weren't all slaves. They were adrenaline junkies, glory seekers, and debtors looking for a quick payday. These volunteers were even more obsessed with their diet because they knew it was the difference between life and death. They'd follow the Horderii plan religiously, drink their ash potion, and build up the fat shield like their lives depended on it, because, well, they did. But here's the part that the competition's video definitely ignored: the social status of these barley-munching fighters. Despite their humble diet, gladiators were rock stars. They had fan clubs, they had groupies, they had graffiti on the walls of Pompeii saying things like Celadus, the heartthrob of the girls. Seriously. That's a real inscription. Imagine that, a chubby, ash-drinking, barley-eating dude who smells like vinegar and sweat, and women are swooning over him. It's like the ancient version of a heavy metal guitarist, but with more blood. And their diet played into that fame. They were the epitome of discipline. They were the ultimate athletes. The average Roman citizen ate a diet heavy in bread, olives, and occasionally fish or meat, but they didn't have the same nutritional rigor. The gladiators were the pioneers of sports nutrition. They understood calories, minerals, and recovery long before anyone had a clue about vitamins. They just did it in the grossest way possible. So, let's bring it all home. If you're a modern athlete, you probably obsess over macros, meal prep, and supplements. You drink kale smoothies and collagen peptides. You think you're so advanced. But the Romans were doing the same thing, just with way less hygiene and a lot more vinegar. They carb-loaded, they mineral supplemented, they optimized for injury prevention, all without a single sports scientist in sight. They figured it out through trial, error, and a healthy dose of brutality. And you know what? It worked. They survived longer, they fought better, and they entertained the masses for centuries. Not because they ate steaks and pumped iron, but because they ate humble barley, drank liquid campfire, and embraced their inner teddy bear physique. Now, I'm not saying you should go out and start drinking ash. Please don't. That's a terrible idea. But the next time you watch a gladiator movie and see some ripped dude with a chiseled jaw, just remember, that's not history. That's fantasy. The real gladiator was a carb monster with a belly, a weird taste in beverages, and a fan base that didn't care about his abs. And honestly, that makes them way more interesting. Because they weren't superheroes. They were human beings, pushed to the extreme, fueled by the most unglamorous food imaginable, and they still walked into that arena knowing they might die. That takes more guts than a six-pack ever could. So, there you have it. The truth about Roman gladiator diets, the good, the bad, and the utterly bizarre. If you enjoyed this deep dive, and I hope you did, because I spent way too much time reading archaeological journals for this, then give it a thumbs up, share it with your history buff friends, and let me know in the comments. Would you rather eat like a gladiator or drink like one? Because honestly, I think I'd take the barley over the ash any day. Don't forget to subscribe if you want more myth-busting, sarcasm-laced history content. And until next time, stay curious, and stay away from vinegar and fireplace leftovers. Trust me on that.